everybody doing today? Yeah. Give it up for Brandon doing the announcements. And should give it up for anybody who's going to go buy that boy a cheeseburger later on and bulk him up. I'll gladly trade you anything that I got right here. And I want to thank the tech team in the back because today is going to be different. We're going to derail a little bit from our series, but not really. What to do when you don't know what to do. You know, I find it interesting that we plan these series a year in advance, and yet here we are in the middle of, gosh, there's so many words that I want to use, but they're not appropriate for church. It's just a mess. It's a mess. I wanted to go so many different directions with today's message, and I'm just like, no, you can't do that. You just can't. We have, and if anybody has an answer to what do you do when you don't know what to do, it should be the church. It should be those that believe that God is the foundational bedrock of what takes place. Because let's face it, there's a lot of us that want to look in all sorts of different directions and we're not really finding it. We look to hashtags and pundits and mouthpieces on the news. And in every passage that we would even look at today talks about what does it look like to have wisdom. The wisdom to maybe talk about this when it needs to be talked about. The wisdom to possibly, and you might not teach this at home, but you believe it in the back of your mind, the wisdom to shut up when you need to and not post something. Because just because somebody else talked about it or posted about it or said something about it does not mean that that was an invite for you to put your 2 cents in. And yet I sat for hours on Friday night going back and forth with a dear friend who I went to college with, who came over from Jamaica to go to Bible college to learn about faith, and lives in New York City and in downtown Manhattan and is looking at the landscape of what is taking place. And he just goes, Jason, why? Why do I see so many people who claim faith who seem so angry and mean? He said, I don't even want to go to church. I don't even know what this whole thing is about. He said, how do I navigate this as a black man in a culture where things go awry? And then I have my friends in law enforcement who will come to me and say, Jason, I just need wisdom because I'm seeing this and I don't know what to do because I'm trying to do my job and do it well. And then there's guys that are out there that are giving a bad name to good men and women who go out every day knowing that they might not come home. How do I navigate that? Because I'm angry. And I just go, man, I'm angry too. Actually, even more than that, I'm just so sad. I'm just so sad that we're here again. Like we're back at the same place again. And whether it's with skin color or the uniform that someone puts on, we're still somehow not getting this right. And I get it. Someone either posts all lives matter or black lives matter or blue lives matter. Do you know that talking with some, there's truth in every single one of those. The answer to that is yes. The answer to that's yes. That we live and are moving and breathing in a culture where all those are absolutely true, but they're not at, or at least should not be at war with one another. Not based on the context of what we see within the very nature and account of what God has shared with us. That every single one of us do matter. No matter the skin tone, no matter the melanin, no matter what we wear, No matter if we adorn our body with tattoos or stay squeaky clean, we matter. And so what do we do? The question remains, what do we do when we don't know what to do? Well, I would say probably the answer isn't to hop onto social networking and to plan a tirade. Processing your emotions on social networking doesn't make you adult, it makes you a toddler. If you rant and rave, it makes you look, and I say this because I've done this too, where I tell my daughter, you can't go crazy like that, and that I've done that online before. And I go, man, I really look like my 8-year-old daughter typing away. That's not okay. I think we need to be able to say that some certain things just aren't okay as we process how it is making wise decisions. Every week we tell our children in the back, as they're learning about God and faith in this journey with a loving, beautiful, amazing God, we want you to know that God loves you, that God made you, and that Jesus wants to be your friend. And then we're waltzing them into a culture where we just see hate at every direction. Who will be the ones that rise up to answer the question what to do when you don't know what to do? It should be us. Should be those that follow God. And not with a fist raised high, but with hands open wide. Because one of the things that we've seen from our brothers and sisters across all different races and even faiths is that when we come together in love, we can change anything. But the question still remains what to do when you don't know what to do. And there's a wisdom that we've been looking at. We started it last week, that there's this guy named Solomon. This guy who's taking over being king, and he looks to God, and he doesn't know what to do. And God asks him the question, what do you want? What's your heart's desire? For a lot of us, that question rings so true right now. God, I don't know what my heart's desire is. I'm tossed in 1,000 different directions. But what we looked at last week is that we know that morality isn't enough. That would say that just being a good person. Not only is morality not enough, but just being smart isn't enough. Because I've met a lot of smart people who just don't have a lot of street smarts, just don't have a lot of tact in nature, and it goes very badly for them. I would say that success isn't enough because I've met some very successful people that honestly don't know how to navigate life very well. And so where we landed last week, and it rings true today, is that wisdom is being good at life. And what we said at being good at life is that we're making choices that honor all people, not just ourselves. Which is so difficult in our current landscape that we have. It is very easy to make decisions based on yourself, based on your occupation, based on your upbringing, based on your ethnicity. And we want to say that these things don't matter. I think at the core, and we hear people saying, race shouldn't matter, and where you've been brought up doesn't matter, and all these things. But the reality is, as much as we want to say those things, the reality is they do matter. Tell that to a refugee that comes from overseas and that wants to integrate into our culture, that just wants what you and I have been in all of our lives. And yet they get spoken to, and I've seen it. I've seen it down at the ocean front. They see a license plate, they see someone that's different than them, and I've heard, why don't you go back home? Really? That's where we're going to land? And so these things do matter. It would be foolish of us to say that these don't matter, that these precepts, that where we come from, where we're born and what takes place and what we've been taught and what we believe, those things, well, they matter. And so wisdom is being able to take what God says, what God has instructed us through the account of the Bible, and putting that into practice in such a way that people look at your life and they look at mine, and they would say, there's something different about you. There's something that isn't the same as what I'm seeing in all of these other pieces. You know, you call yourself a Christian, and yet you say that black lives do matter. But I hear these other friends that would say that all lives matter. You know, and you may have seen this play out that's saying that, and there's a lot of stuff about the official Black Lives Matter movement that I would not agree with. There's some things that are woven into the manifesto, and that I would say that doesn't even match up with what God has laid out within the narrative of Scripture. But if you take apart this grandiose thing and look at the precept of life, that you're able to say to someone of color and say, listen, I believe that your life matters. Instead of getting on a platform and saying, well, no, we're missing the point that all of this matters. And one of the things that I had written online, just trying to help guide people, because honestly, this is a whole hot mess, is saying it would be like if you go to the doctor because you've been in an accident. And you know that your arm is broken, that it's broken across here, and you can see it. And you go in and you tell the doctor, Doc, look, my arm is broken. I need someone to fix this. And the doctor stops, and they're like, whoa, why are we talking about arms here? All bones matter. You would stop for a brief moment and go, are we in the same reality? Because this bone is broken in two. And so let's not address all my bones. I love all my bones. They're super. I like them. But this bone right here is broken. So can we at least, Doc, address this? And in the same way, when my friends and your friends of color and those that stand with them say that Black Lives Matter, what they're not saying is, I don't care about police officers. Now, are there some that would go down that road? Yes, but there's a bad apple in everything. And if we say because there's one bad apple in something that we're going to negate it, then we shouldn't be here, because there's bad pastors that happen all across the country. There's bad Christians, so we shouldn't. There's people that go to gyms that actually don't lose weight, so we shouldn't go to the gym. There's people that get overweight from going to the grocery store, so we shouldn't eat it from the grocery store. And so if we let that thinking play out, we live in the woods by ourselves with nothing and no one, because everything has offended and hurt us, because there's a bad apple in everything. So let's just acknowledge this. As believers, we should believe the best. And as we approach these topics and we see this, what we should say to our friends of color is, I stand with you. Because something's happening that isn't okay. But at the same time, I have men and women who I love dearly, who serve, who every day leave their families not sure if they're going to come home. And so when they post Blue Lives Matter and you get angry because you say, what about this? What about this? And you pile on this, they are not saying that other people don't matter. But what they are saying is things like what happened in Dallas, where they were led to a slaughter. I cannot even put into words the sorrow and anger that I felt when I watched that happen. In the same way that I rise up in frustration when I watch videos of people who are already subdued and yet get, and I know we don't want to say this, but that get executed. That's not okay. At some point, Christians and believers have to be able to come to a place where we can say that we don't want the image of officers to be painted in a bad light, because they're great men and women who are doing great things, and there are bad apples in that. But when there is a bad apple, we don't say anything other than, and shouldn't say anything other than, that is a bad apple. That is not okay. We need to handle that. In the same way, when we watch something take place and someone does commit a crime and things happen, we need to say, well, that is what takes place. But when someone does not commit a crime and yet they still face punishment and or death for something they did not do, the church cannot sit idly and say, well, and give the litany of excuses. Over in a passage that we're going to look at today, I just want to read through Psalm chapter 4, just a few verses. And it talks about what it looks like to walk down paths of decision. And I don't know where you land in this. I don't know where you're at. I have, again, friends who don't have what they would say, they don't have a dog in the fight on either side. They go, I don't know what it's like to be a law enforcement officer because I'm not that, and I don't have a ton of close connections to people of color, and so I don't know what to do with this. And so you may fall all over the spectrum in this, but what's true is that you're here, and so you came here because you either love God already, have made a decision for Him, or someone brought you because you came because you're searching. You know that this world is wrecked. You know that even your own life at times can be wrecked, and so you're looking for answers. And this wisdom out of Proverbs chapter 4 is something that I think we all need. And we have all kinds of different ways to connect with the Bible stuff, but I just want to read this passage here. It's Proverbs 4, starting in verse 11. It says, I instruct you in the way of wisdom and lead you along straight paths. It continues on in verse 12, and it'll be here on the screen here in a moment. When you walk, your steps will not be hampered. When you run, you will not stumble. Hold on to instruction. Do not let it go. Guard it well, for it is your life. See, these aren't passive words. This is not something that is just kind of happening. I hope that you arrive at some good place. I hope that this goes on. These are fighting words. Hold on to instruction. We probably say this if you have children. How many times have I told you? You're like, I love you. I love him. I do love him, God. Do not let it go. Guard it well within your heart. How can we move in a way of love if we have not yet engaged what God has laid out for us in the account of His story, to be able to look and say, I know what it says to love. If we haven't been there, then there is no way that we could show love in the proper manner. We have to be able to come to a place where we say, I cherish mankind so deeply that my engagement with my faith will be so great because I want not only my life to be changed, but the lives of other people. Because this hatred and this darkness cannot go on. And there will always be evil, there will always be pain, there will always be suffering. But that does not mean that believers in God and His church cannot come to a place where we say, you know what, I want to be a force of change. That's why when I watch my brothers and sisters who put on that uniform and wear that badge as they walk out, that I extend a hand and I shake their hand and thank them tirelessly. Because I know that the vast majority, we're not talking about like 1 out of every 5, the vast majority put on that uniform not because they want gratitude or a pat on the back. They do it because they want to make a difference. And yet we have a few that want to take us in a different direction, and that's where we find ourselves in our current culture today. And then we have people where we just, like, man, these situations happen and we just don't know what to do. But we have to hold strong to what is true. We have to be able to hold to that wisdom that God has given us, that you and I can be catalysts for change in a culture that has gone desperately wrong. It continues on in verses 14 and 15. Do not set foot on the path of the wicked or walk in the way of evildoers. Avoid it. Do not travel on it. Turn from it and go on your way. In case you didn't know, it's like when I tell my children 1,000 different ways to not touch my laptop. You know, my laptop really is the heartbeat of what I'm able to do. I write sermons from it. I send emails on it. I'm able to do my study on it to be able to learn and get better at this, which I'm trying, guys. I really am. You know, you put up with me on a weekly basis. You're amazing. You guys are the MVPs. You know, and so I tell them, don't touch my laptop. Well, what if I want to? I don't know what you want to do, but I know it doesn't involve my laptop. Well, how about this? I'm going to set it here, and you don't come near it. Don't go around it. Don't think about it. Don't look at it. Don't even dream about the day that you might have a laptop or that this might get old and I replace it. And even if I replace it and this is the old one, I'm not going to let you touch it. Go buy your own. And we read this passage, and we read that it said, do not set foot on the path of the wicked. Do not walk in the way of evildoers. Avoid it. Do not travel on it. Do not turn from it. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200 and go on your way. What he's saying is hold to wisdom and don't be dumb. I know we don't want to hear it that way, but in layman's terms, hold on to wisdom. Don't be dumb. Don't do dumb things. Don't go down wicked. Don't go down evil. Don't go down places that will hurt you and hurt others, and it will cause them strife, or even worse, that it would lead to the ending of someone's life. Because that is not okay, and that is not what God wants. In a perfect world, that's not the way God wanted it, is that everyone would live peacefully, that everyone would be honorable, that everyone would be loving and kind and follow him. And yet, we have free will. And so the truth is, with free will, is that there always will be evil, because people will choose it. But how we respond changes everything. And it continues on in Proverbs chapter 12. So in the path of righteousness, there is life. But another path, that other path leads to death. You see, the choices that you make don't just affect what you do. The choices you make also affect who you become. And so with every post, with every conversation that you have with loved ones, or every conversation that you have with people that all think like you do, and I know we don't want to hear those things, but if everyone around us agrees with us, then there might be a problem. Now, I know even as we're talking today that there might be some of you that you might be angry with me hearing some of this. And I love you. And it's okay that we may disagree. But what we cannot disagree on is the fact that people need to be treated with love, and that life in any form is valuable to God. Life in any form, I want us to hear this, is valuable to God. And from those that are overseas, even plotting to come to the States and hurt us, to our next door neighbor, to the child that's sleeping in the bedroom quietly, wondering what they're going to get for their birthday, having no idea about what's unfolding in this culture, to even the life that may be inside of you right now as you're an expectant mom, that all life is valuable before the eyes of God. And so because we treat it as such, we look at the wisdom of God, and when we get to places where we say, what do you do when you just don't know what to do? That Solomon would tell us in this moment that these choices we make, and I know that it rhymes, but it makes it true, the choices we make are like roads that we take. Some lead to life, some to death. That you and I have choices, and I would ask you in this moment and in this climate of what's taking place, that the easiest person and the person best, and I wrote this down, nobody can lie better to you than you. That whatever you've made up in your mind about all of this and more, I mean, let's face it, and we haven't even gotten into all the politics and things and all this stuff. I think we can all agree that this place is a mess. And we can begin to lie to ourselves and tell ourselves that it's not, or that it's not in certain areas. And so as we are making choices and as we're looking to God's wisdom, we have to ask ourselves a couple things. And this would be my hope that as you walk through decision making, as you jump into a place where you go, how do I navigate this life and this stuff and what's happening now? Because if you have ever checked in at Forefront Church on social networking, if you've ever worn a t-shirt that says Forefront on it, if you have a sticker on your car when you drive to work, cutting off people and telling them they're number one, as you drive with that Forefront thing, I want you to hear me as I say, those around you are watching and waiting for your response. Because for many of your friends, the only Jesus that they ever see is you. And so how you respond to these things, how you do it well, will determine whether or not they ever accept Jesus. I don't know if you've ever thought about that before. The way that you navigate your life with kids, singleness, married life, divorced life, wherever your job, how you care for your home as people watch it, and all this stuff, everything that you do paints a small glimpse into whether or not they go, I think they know Jesus. I think they call themselves Christians. They're basing their idea of believers off you. And so I would ask you to ask yourself two simple questions when you navigate this whole thing of life. The first one is this: can it wait? Can it wait? Most of us do not like to wait. We like to get places quickly. We like to get what we want. We have Amazon Prime, and the fact that it even takes 2 days makes some of you super irritated. If you have to wait in a line that's too long, oh man, everyone's going to hear about it. If you had to wait and they get it wrong, oh boy, hell hath no fury. Someone who didn't get the burger that they wanted. Can it wait? Can the thing that you're about to say to someone, can you wait long enough to think about how it impacts them? The reaction that you're about to have, unfortunately, and we can count on it, to the next time something happens and unfolds in the news. Can your response wait just a few minutes? A few hours? Maybe even a few days? Because wisdom would tell us that sometimes the best thing that we can do is wait. That rushing into things and doing things prematurely can end in disaster because we haven't thought it through. And watching the way that we speak and the way that we type. Because nowadays it's very easy to be brave. You know that song that we sang, "You Make Me Brave"? And I don't think that's referring to how you get behind a keyboard in a screen. But it's very easy when you don't see a face on the other end to type out and say things. And in all that Zuckerberg thought Facebook would be, I don't think that his hope was, I really hope people get angry and hurt one another here. The second question, and it won't be on the screens because our screens have gone down, is it good for we, not just good for me? I want to tell you that again. Is it good for we, not just good for me? You see, there may be plenty of decisions that are really great for you, but they're not good for the rest of everyone around you. It might sound great to do a myriad of things in your life, or to say certain things, or to go certain places, or to make certain decisions. But when you add that to the whole, it changes things. Like when I was single, I could do whatever I really wanted to do, which was awful, by the way. That was not a good idea. Like just running around going like, can I do this today? Yeah, sure, why not? I can eat a whole pizza, whatever. Awful idea. Well, then I had a wife, And then every time I spent money, we had to like talk about what we spent. Oh, you mean I can't get that because we got to like pay the rent? Ugh, gosh, adulting's awful. And then we had kids. And now my decisions revolve around 4 blonde-haired, blue-eyed girls. And I don't have blonde hair or blue eyes, and so I'm just like, what's going on? I don't want a pretty princess castle. And the decisions that I make need to be for the we. The decisions that I make don't just affect my family, they affect here. Do you know, as I posted that long thing trying to process all this because people kept emailing and asking for an answer, I knew that as I posted that, whether I wanted to or not, that reflects on Forefront Church. And when I'm out in public and how I drive doesn't just reflect on me, it reflects on this community. How I parent my kids, and if they go off the rails, and you guys watch and go, look, pastor can't even take care of his own kid. That affects what happens here. So is it good for we and not just for me? May we learn in the wisdom of Solomon. I'm going to read back just briefly this passage as he looks at the paths. When you walk in, your steps will not be hampered. When you run, you will not stumble. I instruct you in the way of wisdom and lead you along straight paths. Hold on to instruction. Do not let it go. Guard it well, for it is your life. I would even infer that it's not, as you hold on to that instruction, it's not just about your life. It's about the lives of those around you. And so you and I have a choice. Can it wait, and is it better for we instead of me? Because the choices you make also dictate who you become. May we all become people who honor God and follow him deeply and dispense love like never before and change a culture so that we don't have to worry about the hashtags about whose life matters because we're so busy serving one another in love. Pray with me.